Hello class, my name is Tony Jauregui and I will be your adjunct professor for the next 8 weeks. I apologize for how quickly all of this will run. It will be a very fast-paced course, but I think you'll really enjoy it. I know some of you may be new to potentially doing an online program, which there's nothing wrong with that. Welcome. I just wanted to give you a couple pointers about how to check things out and understand things. Um, Day 1 starts on Monday and day 7 is Sunday. So all work must be submitted by 11:59 on a Sunday. That's day 7. So if you're looking at your syllabus, sorry if this is making you motion sick here. For example, the exam, it's on chapters 1 and 2, due week 1, day 7. So that would be this coming Sunday, all of that is due. Discussion board is due week 1, day 7. Okay, so our first assignment on how to raise a baby, week 2, day 7. Okay, now as we get towards the end, the capstone is due week 8, day 4. The reason is I have to have all the grades submitted and turned in time, like only a couple days after classes end. So for me to grade everybody's capstone and get that all completed, those extra few days are really helpful. Now I will offer extra credit throughout these 8 weeks, so don't be alarmed. So you just look in your course announcements. I really do ask that you guys check those out. In your syllabus is also listed all the different assignments. There will be a discussion board each week. However, I will give you full credit for week 8. I'm not expecting you guys to do week 8's discussion board. Just so you know, there is 3 assignments, and then there's the capstone. Also, there's a few exams. Okay, so this is the breakdown of points. You'll have 8 discussion boards, 5 exams, 3 assignments, and a capstone. Because this is a master's level class, you can't not get an A or a B. So please be mindful of that, okay? Be checking up on your grades. If you're falling behind, please be in communication with me. I do not accept late work. However, if there's extenuating circumstances, please contact me so we can work together. My email address is right here, tjauregui@calbaptist.edu. I do not have an office on campus. However, if you needed to meet with me in person, we can figure out a way to set up an appointment, or I may be reached by phone, which I'm highlighting kind of right here. That's my phone number, so you can reach me there. I will be contacting you through these lovely live lectures that you get to watch. Now, there's a lot of different things that are shown here in the weeks, extra videos and things of that nature. So those are all just things to add to your learning. So that's basically it. Lifespan's a really great class because we're going to be going over things from the beginning of conception to death, really, and just seeing how it affects people. It's a great class to get you excited for psychology and what's ahead. I kind of wanted to focus on a few different things today, and one of them being nature versus nurture. Oh, I didn't even tell you guys my background. I apologize. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I have been licensed since 2010. Yeah, 2010. I have a private practice, and I'm a clinical supervisor at a couple of different facilities, one for Cal Baptist and one for a school district. And then I do this as well. So you'll see if you enter into the world of becoming a licensed MFT or getting your LPCC, you will see that you'll probably have many hats potentially. If you guys ever have questions about that, please don't hesitate to ask. I also have the job of helping raise 4 little boys. So life is never dull. You may occasionally hear them in the background. So again, please contact me if you have any questions or concerns. I know sometimes the fast-pacedness of 8 weeks can be a bit overwhelming, so let me help you out if I can. Okay, so nature and nurture. We talk about this a lot when it comes to psychology, just trying to understand people and trying to see like what's because of just their gene pool and their genetic makeup and what is because of how they've been raised. We talk a lot about that. Again, people, we can think of very many, like a lot of different people into trying to figure out what is it like. Um, like if an emotional response to something, is that nature or is that how they've been nurtured? Um, what they decide to like, to not to like. When they start walking, not walking, all those kinds of things. Um, we look at small children and we think, how can you? I mean, I have 4 little people in my house, 7 and under. All of them are very different people. And I would like to think my husband and I tried to raise them very similarly, but they're all very different. Now, is that because of nature? Is that because of how they're nurtured? Some of it, I think, is nature. They have very different personalities. They're different people. None of them are exactly the same. But I'm sure some of it is too, like when you look at birth order, right? How we treat a firstborn is different than how we treat a secondborn versus a thirdborn versus a fourthborn. Sure, they have the same rules and boundaries, but just because they are different, you treat them different, or because of what you know as a parent is different with your firstborn than what it is your secondborn, you might change some things. So these are probably experiences you yourselves have had or have had to experience, like being a child. It is very interesting when you just start looking at your own kids in that way and just seeing like what's because we've cultivated this and what is because of this is just how they were created, right? So, um, So, sociocultural forces, so that's like, again, what's going on around us, right? There's a lot that affects us. Psychological forces and biological forces. All these things are working together to create the life cycle forces, okay? Um, Neuroscience is really involved in some of these things, right? Like looking at the brain and trying to understand like how the brain works and human reasoning and emotions and things of that nature. And are shaping those kinds of things, or scientists are curious of what shapes us into who we are, right? And that's how they may study some of that. So these are some of the theories that look at human development: psychodynamic theory, learning theory, cognitive development theory, ecological and systems theory, and lifespan perspective and related theories. So you might see these come up from time to time. Um, so again, psychodynamic theories, the development is determined by how well people resolve conflicts based at different ages, right? So we have, the Erikson stages, Sigmund Freud had stages, I think Adler Alderson had stages. Um, so this is some of Erikson's stages, trust versus mistrust, autonomy versus shame. A lot of this has to do with age, identity versus identity confusion. These are things you may have heard about in the past. Skinner, there's the Skinner box. That was one of the things he created. But anyways, consequences of a behavior determine whether or not the behavior is repeated in the future. And then, of course, social learning theory. Learning occurs through the imitation of observational learning, which we see this a lot with infants, right? Like I have a little infant in my house right now. Well, he's not an infant, I shouldn't say. He's 1. He feels little though. He'll imitate what we do. He is in a house with 3 older brothers, so he he hits. um, I don't think that's a genetic thing. I think he's seen that happen with all his brothers. And so it's just interesting how kids will pick up on that kind of stuff very quickly. Cognitive development theory, right? This is Piaget. Children create theories about the world and test them out through experience. So it's hands-on, right? How people think and how thinking changes over time. Very interesting. Um, so when you're looking at some of these, this is Piaget. So sensory motor, pre-operational thought, concrete operational, and formal operational. ecological and systems perspectives. Development is imperable from the environment in which a person develops. So, Bronfenbrenner's theory, people are embedded into 4 levels of the environment. And then competence environmental press theory, a good match between competence and environmental press is best for development. And this is, again, this is part of that systems theory. So you got the culture, historical events, macro system, and then the ethnic group. So there's multi-directionality, plasticity, historical context, and multi-causation, which are the 4 essential features of lifespan development. Okay. So again, here is just a little table, which might help you. So that has the breakdown of like the ideas and what this is about. So there's a lot of interesting, you know, ways to like research some of this stuff. People can answer questions, they can do interviews, there can be little tests that are done to try to figure out the brain. There's ways to do like heart monitoring. MRI scans can look at what parts of the brain are lighting up. I think if you got to see that documentary, which I don't think I'm ruining it for you, but Free Solo, they were scanning that guy's brain, and he's the free solo climber, and his amygdala doesn't work the same as other people's. And amygdala is where fear response is in your brain. A lot of times trauma gets stuck in that part of your brain. Anyways, his fear response based on MRI imaging, they were showing him images while in the MRI, and his response to them was like nothing. And so it shows what they were gauging is he's different than the average person, and he doesn't really show the same fear response, which makes sense based on what he does, you know? Very, very interesting. Um, so then there's all this information here on research methods, which I'm not going to bore you with. I wanted to start getting to, you know, the beginning, right? So we have prenatal development. You know, time in the womb is huge. Even if a mom is taking good care of herself, is under a lot of stress, like emotional stress, relational stress, those kinds of things can affect a baby, which is so interesting. But they can because all these, when you're stressed, different hormones are running through you. There's different things that then are released in your body as a result of the stress. And so it's so important that a woman who is pregnant is taking good care of herself in all areas, right? So development happens, right? And we have start the beginning of the development of a baby. So here's a cute little fetus here. So a fetus can hear sounds, has taste, is eating, there's respiration, there's breathing going on, they're living life in the womb. And all these things are being are what I saw a little funny actually meme. It says, um, when my kids actually liked the dinner I made, and it was a picture of a fetus in the womb. It's kind of funny. But this is where prenatal education is so important because the food that you eat, what you're taking into your body is going into your fetus, and that might sound like, well, duh, but there's a lot of people who aren't necessarily educated in these things and don't realize what they're doing could be harmful to their baby. And there can be severe consequences as a result of not taking good care of yourself, you know, with long-term effects for a child. Um, like I mentioned, stress, anxiety, the kind of work you may do, it can all affect a child. Obviously, smoking, drinking, those kinds of things affect a person too. Um, the age of the pregnant mom can have some effects in the sense of maybe stability, socioeconomic status, what's going on with the family. Um, you know, they're saying the American woman now may have children at an average age of later than ever before. I think it's because of, you know, women are so much more encouraged to get an education. So in that process of getting educated, They put off maybe some things that they would have done in years previous, like having children and settling down. And then it comes like a choice between, sometimes women feel it's like a choice between their career, which they've worked so hard for, and their child, which is a very tough and hard spot to be in. Um, and so they're saying fertility problems and miscarriages increase the older that you get, and risks of Down syndrome. And so, there might be some more concerns with these things as women get older. And I feel like as has gone on, you see more cases of fertility issues than they ever had before. Um, Again, drugs can cause abnormal prenatal development. Um, Disease. We have that huge Zika thing in the last few years, and how the Zika virus affects a baby, and that's why they're very cautious of women traveling to certain places because of the long-term effects if you got bit with a mosquito that's infected. And then, breathing in or being in places where there's hazards would obviously potentially affect your baby. So this is where it shows the problems if you do these things while pregnant. Um, you know, there's a lot of things if you were to get sick with them as a pregnant woman, and it would affect your baby, and we talk about this in lifespan, not just because this is part of life, but because this affects a person's span of life. If I'm born and my mother had an outbreak of herpes, and maybe she didn't know, or the doctor didn't know, or something that could cause blindness. Obviously, blindness is going to affect a child the rest of their life, or a child being born with fetal alcohol syndrome is going to affect the trajectory of their life the rest of their life. Some of these things are preventative, you know. And so for people to be educated and understand how this is going to affect overall development is important. Now, there's a lot of things that go on with kids that are out of sight of a person's control. And then you have to deal with them as a parent, and then you move forward, whether sometimes it's a genetic issue, sometimes it's things that maybe we don't know what the causes are, but they happen. And you have to roll with it, but still it affects the lifespan, right? Like what life looks like, and what are the next steps. Um, but it's nice if we can prevent things to be able to prevent them. Okay, so now we're showing the baby in here, how they do ultrasounds. And then obviously birth and delivery, which that too can cause sometimes, just trauma, like not only for the mother, but for the baby, depending on how delivery is. These are some huge history type questions that we ask in therapy to try to understand maybe why a kid is the way a kid is. We ask questions about pregnancy, about delivery, about the things after that time, if mom had postpartum, things of that nature, because these are the things that affect a child. And we might say, like, how would it affect them? They don't know. It does. And that might sound outlandish, but it's true. It does. There's this great book, if you ever get a chance to read it, it's called Becoming Attached, and it talks about attachment and how attachment starts from the moment a child's born, and how crucial that beginning time is. And a lack of attachment from birth can affect a child in a huge way. Um, and so, these are the things we're going to be going over in this course, from, like I said, beginning to end. And it's going to seem very rapid, but I think it's going to be very interesting for you, hopefully. So, like I said, if you have any questions, you may feel free to contact me. Thank you for your time, and welcome to week 1.